I hope you guys are enjoying it, and I hope my talk would be as interesting as a nice movie. So, what are we going to talk about is basically a comprehensive guide to prompt engineering. And I just tell you a bit about myself. So, what I'm going to do, just talk about a bit about prompting and the basic stuff. And of course, the next talks, I'm sure, is going to be more advanced, but it's good to just start with this. Some of you might be already a prompt engineer. Some of you are maybe in like very advanced level. Some of you are in the beginning level. But at the end of the day, I think after ChatGPT, all of us are prompt engineer and we know what is it, even our grandmas. So about myself, I'm Roushanak. So I hold a PhD in AI and specifically computer vision is the field that I studied and I love it, image processing. And so I'm a Google developer expert in both fields of AI and cloud. And I work at IBM as a senior data scientist. And since Gen AI boomed, so we work on so many different Gen AI applications with many different clients because I'm in the consulting and I have my manager at Lloyds Banking, Khoshbu, that we developed the LLM search for Lloyds Banking application. And of course, there was so much prompting there. So yeah, that's about me. So I do basically LLM development, and a big part of that is prompting in my everyday work. I'm active on social media, the ones I listed there. I like to write technical blogs, make videos. So I'm, in case if you're interested, you can reach out to me, connect with me on these platforms, and all of them. My name is Roushanak Rahmat. So it would be nice to connect that in case if you have any question or you're interested to do something later together. Let's start. So, prompt engineering, as most of us every day we do, we just write something with our keyboard and we expect to get something from the chatbot, basically. But there are a lot going on behind the scene, a lot of engineering part, a lot of databases, the prompt libraries, like the workflows, the methodology, and all of them, the way like they are structured and engineered, help us to get the answer that we want. And the more we know this system better, the better we can get answer. And specifically when we work on a application that is basically something for a product. For example, the example I gave you about the LLM search for the Lloyds Banking. So if we know these rules, for example, this prompt recipe that I'm going to talk about it a lot today, if we understand this, the better we can write a prompt, even if we are not technical. And of course, as I said, we can have a better answer and something that we are expecting all the time that we try the same prompt. So this another thing that basically I like to talk about when we try to write our prompt is always good to define the task well, and it comes back to basically this prompt recipe that we are going to talk about it more. So it's good to, when we write it, the whole prompt has a proper task defined, be specific, and we provide the proper context. We provide clear instructions and the personas and who are the target audiences. For example, if I want to say, explain quantum computer to me as a 5-year-old, of course, these models explain it different way that if I say, for example, I have a PhD in quantum computing, right? So they speak different languages, same as us. We humans, we also explain things in different languages by knowing our audience. So these LLMs should know who are the audience. We give them a persona to be able to get the best out of them. And it's always good to have the practice of going with asking an open-ended question, right? We give them more freedom, like to be able to give us a better answer. And as I keep saying, the same like us as human, if we ask each other a question, the more details we put in that question, the better the person who wants to provide a solution would be able to help us. So the same for prompt. If we have a short sentence, we can add more details and we can even add more to have a more effective prompt. And there's so many different types of prompts that we basically might be using them without knowing, for example, the specific category for them. But if I just read some of them, it recalls you something. For example, instruction prompts, question prompts, creative prompt, comparison prompt when we want two things be compared, for example, explanation prompts, opinion prompt, dialogue prompt, persuasive prompt. All of this one make the difference that basically how the answer we are expecting, what is the output. And the way we try to modify them into these specific categories, we are able to modify our output, basically. Prompting on Gemini. So as I told you, I'm a Google developer expert, so I love Google products, and I'm going to talk about Gemini, which is basically the LLM for Google. But what I'm saying, it's basically doable with any other LLM, which is your favorite. And I would like to ask, how many of you never used Gemini? Never. Yeah, you didn't. Oh gosh, that's sad. Maybe today I'll convince you to try that. So what's your favorite model? ChatGPT, guys? Oh, cool. But daily for just asking questions, writing emails, is it ChatGPT? Try Gemini. I mean, it depends. Of course, model by model are different, but especially the Gemini nano banana model that you're able to generate funny images is so cool. So anyway, when you go to Gemini, it's the same way when you just open your browser, go to the Gemini, same like ChatGPT, it just welcomes us. There is a bar at the bottom that we can write our prompt, ask the question, and of course, on top, depending on what is trendy those days, what is their latest products, they give us like options for different products that they have. For example, these days, like I can go and have Nano Banana there. So it just gives you also some ready-made prompts that you're able to use. So coming to these 5 important parts that I talked about. So when we want to write the prompt, it's always good to respect these 5 parts to be included in our prompt. Then we are basically helping these models to be able to understand the problem better and help us better. The first thing is persona or role. If we ask, for example, I don't know, if I go to my, mother or my father, a parent, ask for advice about career, maybe they just talk to me in a different way than if I ask them as a career coach. Or if I go to, for example, to a psychologist, can be a mother, can be also like a psychologist. So depending on what they have to do, they wear the hat of a psychologist or a parent. So basically, that's the same thing that I talk about for asking also even a teacher for different things. And they can even be more niche, for example, psychology in a specific thing, teacher in a specific field. And then tasks. Task is something we all know. We just put it and clearly stating what you need and help with and breaking down into smaller parts if it's a complex problem. And then specifying our audiences. Same example I said, 5-year-old compared to someone who has PhD. And basically, this would help that these models understand how to tailor the answer for those one. Context and constraint. This is very important because by the time they know what is your background, for example, what are the limitations, what are the constraints, they're able to provide better answer. Same as if we go to a doctor, if the doctor knows, let's say, if I have chest pain, if they know I'm a heavy smoker, then, they might think something that if they know, like, I never smoke in my life. So this would be the context that we have to provide. And for the format is basically how we want the response to be presented to us. This is an example that we have prompt that me, myself, to be honest, most of the time when it comes to my use case, like daily use with ChatGPT or Gemini, I just use like something simple. But of course, as I keep saying, when it comes to bigger problems, when it comes to production, when we want to work on something that we want to have a specific type of answer, we can improve this prompt of, for example, suggest some exercises I can do at a home or in a nearby park. I can say that a persona can act as an expert on healthy aging with the focus on physical and mental well-being. The task would be, I would like a list of ideas for staying active. Come on in. And the audiences would be, I'm a senior citizen with limited mobility. See, this would make a huge difference. And the context would be, I prefer activities I can do at home or a nearby park. And the format is include videos and easy to follow exercise routines targeted at people my age. Maybe if we live in London, that most of us do, we can just add another context that, for example, the person is living in London. Of course, like the activities they would suggest to them can be different than someone who lives, I don't know, in nice weather and they enjoy the sun more than us. So basically, when we write the prompt, whether we are doing it manually or we are going to use some of these optimization models that in the next talks, the other speakers are going to talk about them. We always initialize a prompt and we test it and we revise it. And this cycle goes on and on until we reach a place that basically we get the output that we are expecting from the specific input and with respect to the system that we design. And same thing here. We can have, for example, an initial prompt of saying, what's the best way to monetize my YouTube channel? I can add more details when I revise it to say, and how would I revise it? Of course, by seeing the output, I can say, I can understand that it's not, for example, going niche into the part I want, and I can add details of a sponsorship and merchandising for Gen Z. I can again revise that and come with a more high quality prompt and say a detailed plan, a specific examples, and have a to-do list. And when we have a complex problem, it's always good to break down into a smaller problem. For example, if I come and ask my manager a big complicated problem, so many questions, even as a human, like they would get lost. But if I can break it down into smaller parts, then they can give me bit by bit what we can do. So we call it chain of thoughts or multiple prompts. So many of different ways of tackling this that here we can also, the same issue that we had, we can just say how to maximize the YouTube, and then I can add more details and ask more questions, and we can basically get the information we want. These are the good techniques that sometimes we forget to do them. So it's good to go further with the prompt using questions and ideas. So basically, when we ask Gemini, ChatGPT, these models to ask, we can ask them to ask us questions. That would be great because we give them the freedom that, yes, there might be something you have doubt in it or you don't know exactly. So you can ask me. I can write it in the, and let me do this. Okay. I don't think this is working. Okay. No worries. I'll hold it like this. Yeah. I can write it in a prompt in a way that I say, ask me for an extra information. You may need to give me a more tailored response. That would really help these models. Or I can ask the Gemini for ideas, for brainstorming and open-ended discussion. I can write it in this way to say, for example, think outside of the box and give ideas that may not be obvious, or propose 5 different unconventional approaches. So like this, they're able to just come with ideas. I give them the freedom to think outside of the box. I can give them the freedom to ask me questions and so on. And of course, by now, after many years of using these models, we are expert. We don't need these examples, but there are some helpful phrases that in case if we don't know, and even we can ask even these models to give us like phrases to be able to communicate with them easier. For example, explain about a specific topic to me as if I'm 5. I don't know, give me pros and cons of something, and so many of the others that I'm sure you guys, by using these models for a long time, you're expert yourself. Now let's do some practice together. Let's see how we can just break down our prompt into these different 5 parts and improve that. I have on the left this prompt that I'm saying generate, and that's basically the question I have. And I'm saying generate 10 unique content ideas for a sustainability focused Instagram account targeting millennials and Gen Z in Singapore. What do you guys think would be the best persona for this? Social media expert, nice. Influencer, nice. Anything else? Content creator, cool. All of them can be the right answer, right? Depending on what is in my mind, what is in our mind. And what would be the task, guys? Amazing. And the audiences, millennials and Gen Z, right? And they live in Singapore. And what would be the context and restriction? We can say, and content creator here we suggested, but everything you guys said is correct and it works. And that's another part, even like we can refine that. Maybe sometimes we can change these personas to see which one of them works better. And then the context would, for example, we can say, I don't know, avoid overused topics and do something. And then the format would be 10 unique and so on. And sometimes some of these parts, for example, I don't know, maybe living in Singapore can be also a restriction for some of these things that one said. It's not like a specific thing that we have to say to these models, this is persona, this is task. Although if we do that, they understand. But in general, we can just have a mixture of them and they can extract this information from our text. Another example would be develop a strategy for handling negative comments and online trolls on Instagram. What do you think, guys, can be a good persona for this? Moderator. Cool. Anything else? Oh, that's a nice one. I think it's closer to what we have here, like a PR manager. And the task would be developing strategy for handling negative prompts, negative comments, and online trolls. Then audiences would be trolls, which are usually, and then we can give a characteristic, what would be the constraint and the format. Easy, right? And now when it comes to, I don't know how much more time I have. Awesome. So let's go through to just check. This is, as I keep saying, it's Gemini, but of course, all these other models, they have similar platforms and try to, of course, compete with each other and have all these features. But I'll show you some of the nice features that I like on Gemini. So let's say we have a prompt that somebody is asking about like a plant-based diet and asking some questions. And when they put it in the Gemini chat panel, basically, this model is able to give like a proper definition of what is this diets, breaking down into different parts. And we usually know, like they also provide more details than what we ask them. And what would be interesting, there is a button that we can just go and ask about. Of course, it depends also on our subscription stuff, but we can Google this information. Let's say one part of this information is something maybe is interesting for me. Maybe I have doubt in it. Maybe I want to go and find out more about the sources of this information. So I can just click on the G button, which basically stands for Google, and then it can show me like more information about what's happening, highlights that this Google, for example, search found contents that is slightly similar to this. We can click on that and go and read more and basically expand our information. And in case if there are information that they are not matching with the contents that the model created for us, then we can assume maybe it's hallucination, or maybe it's something, maybe it really the model, they learned from them, but it's not something that easily we can access via Google. Other things that is nice and I like to talk about would be like, this is, okay, before we get there, this example is we are asking the same questions that we had for Gen Z. We have a budget and we want to basically, we want help to craft a script that includes catchy and so on. So we want to have a script with a specific budget that we have, a specific timing and so on. So these models, they're perfect, right? They just are able to generate like a proper content for us in each time what we should say, how much, and breaking down our problem into different steps. But what would be important sometimes, for example, for this example, I'm not happy with the answer I got, whether the timing is not good, whether, I don't know, this budget, for example, is overestimating or something. Then I can go back and edit my prompt. And like that, I can modify rather than going and asking another question that it keeps in their memory. So I can basically somehow clear that part of the memory by editing that. And then the model is not going to confuse if I ask a question later. And we can, for this specific part of the, for example, text, we can just click on it, modify that specific part, undo highlights. There's so many different ways that we can also help this model to understand which part is more important for us. I can ask it to be shorter. I can ask it to remove this specific output, make it longer, and so on. One thing I want to tell you today, which is one of my favorite parts of these models, is called GEMS. Have you guys heard about GEMS? Okay. Oh, someone is nodding. That's great. For GEMS stands for Gemini models, but of course, in the other contexts and ChatGPT stuff, we have similar stuff. So, what are GEMS basically, or their equivalents? Is basically when we want to reuse our prompt. Have you ever had, for example, whether in your production or in your even daily chat with these models, a prompt that you wrote and then you wanted to use it next time? I used to just copy paste them in a text file and then I go back and then read them. But now we can save these prompts and we can basically just, let's say, for example, if I'm a content creator on YouTube or I write blogs, or for example, I write about I have a newsletter about AI. What I can do, I can create a proper prompt and with a specific format, how I want to have it, what would be my sections, what should I cover, what are, let's say, the companies that I like to talk about in my newsletter. And then I can save it. And every week I'll go back and recall that gem. And it would basically, I can just ask that, okay, tell me like what's happening in this week. And with that specific format, it's able to provide me the nice newsletter for that week. And this would be very useful, of course, for us when it comes to production, because let's say when we make a prompt, we want like everybody be able to use that and get the same answer. And even people who don't know what are this model or how they work or they're not technical. So basically how it works, there are some built-in prompts that we can basically use them, or we are able to just generate our own built-in gems, and we can make our own gems by just clicking there, just creating a new gem, give the instruction with respect to all those details and that 5 parts that I told you: persona, audience, task, and so on. And we are able to get the preview what's happening. And this is the example I told you. Let's say I said newsletter. Here there is a podcaster that is happy with this format. And also they respected the purpose, context, instruction, and so on. And they call this gem podcast brainstormer. And next time that they want to use it, basically they just say, just give me, for example, a podcast for this week. Then the models are able to go do the search, what's happening, provide them the context they want. See, for example, it's a time for next week's episode, what should I talk about? And then it provides like the proper, just with this time, you don't need to add all those details again. And we are able to share the gems with each other. We are able to share specifically if you want to use them on other application. It's just the bottom there that we get the link for that, and then we can create this public link and share. We are able to upload documents, talk to those documents, and that can be also a part of the information that later we can save in our gem. That's a cool thing. And I think that's enough for, I think I don't have more time unless I could talk more about other stuff. But yeah, please, yes. Custom build persona. You mean, sorry, I don't understand it. Do you mind to explain a bit more? Yeah. Okay. So the name of my gem is podcast brainstormer, and you're absolutely right. So it's basically a persona, right? But the instruction, maybe I passed this part very fast. So the instruction that we have is basically the prompt, okay? And in that prompt, we basically respect this purpose, context, instruction, and so on. And you're absolutely right. The persona part, which is missing here, we kept it as the name, okay? But also we can even put it in the instruction, for example. So that's the prompt, and this is the gem. And then I can also preview the output. I can improve that until I revise it, until I'm happy with that. Then I can save it, and later I can call it. Yes, please. Yeah. To be able to, the best. Sure. So basically, like the time that when we have some restrictions or constraints and the model is not basically respecting or basically paying attention. So what should we do? So she's saying she put it 2-3 times in the prompt and it doesn't happen. So my own experience with problems like this was like I wasn't writing the prompt properly. So I had to explain it even better, or specifically when I came to these 5 rules and respecting them more, they understood they're doing it better. So I don't think there is like an answer. You just have to revise it. And even one technique once I used, which is basically we can use to ask these models themselves to modify our output, sorry, our prompt, and maybe just say what I want to emphasize on this restriction. How can I wording it? Help me with the wording. Hopefully it works. Next time, please. I'm not the best for cost estimating this one, but I believe it would be cheaper. Yeah. Yes, yes. So basically it's something, a product, let's say we reuse it rather than creating it again. So I believe this would be cheaper. Yes. I don't know. I believe at the end they would be doing the same work, but in case of I haven't used, to be honest, the custom GPT ones, but I guess it's doing the same task. But in case of if we have to consider what are the best instructions, I don't know. Yeah,
More questions, but please find the Roushanak tab on the break. I believe you're around.
sure.
Now there's complex tasks for you. You need to choose someone, for example, best question, and we give one of the books as a reward.
Ooh, best question. Somebody, I think this lady, she challenged me with the pricing. Let's go with that.